one tool to stop your projects and events from failing. So back when I was a project manager many years ago, one of the hardest things was to keep a project within budget, complete it on time, and to do it with the right quality. And so I wanted to share with you one tool which I think will really revolutionize the way your projects are actually started, managed, and completed. So in this video, which is a coaching call I had with someone about leadership and the way they kind of do these things, I discussed this tool and I want to share it with you, and I hope it will be something of real benefit.
So the first thing I would say is that it's very important when you're doing something that you're very clear yourself in terms of your own mindset, right? Are you in a place where your mind is right for this project? And this is why I asked you about short term, long term, because the project you're talking about is amazing, right? But at the same time, it seemed like this was like a passing thing where you're just kind of doing it on the side. And if you have that mindset, then maybe subconsciously it will lead to results like that as well. So I think it's very, very important for you to get clear in your own mind that this is a project that I'm doing for this reason, and it lasts this long, and it will include exactly this. So I think it's very important that before you do anything and you take on any projects, that you actually spend some time with yourself and you sit down and you really try and craft out certain things. Now, one of the things they found in project management when they looked into it is that the way you start a project is probably the most important part of the project. And that's why if you look at qualifications like Prince 2, they take massive, massive steps at the start to ensure that the project is, started correctly. So if you remember, I don't know if you remember, but in IRA, one of the documents that we would do sometimes was called a PID. And this is basically a project initiation document. And what it does is it basically forces the project manager to answer a whole host of questions, which, if answered, actually will produce a much better result for the project. And if they're not addressed or if they're not answered, then we'll end up with projects that that don't go so well and that most people actually have. So just to kind of recap your memory, some of the things that the PID goes through is that it looks at what exactly is the background of the situation, right? So they'll have a background, an overview explaining what it's all about. Then they'll define the actual project. So they'll say the project is all about this, 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 and this, right? And this is very important because something that's very common in projects is something called scope creep, which is where they think, okay, let's do this, let's build this house. And then suddenly they're like, well, why don't we build an outhouse at the back of the house as well? And things start creeping in. So defining the project is very important so that everyone's clear on it. Then you look into like, what are the assumptions that we're making? We might be assuming that, three sisters are going to work on this for 3 months, and therefore, that's a big assumption. Then we'll be looking at, look, what's the business case? What's the reason for actually doing this? Is there a real business reason for doing this? And we would then look at the structure of the project. How's it going to work? Most organizations will have a CEO, they'll have marketing, operations, and then also finance. So in the same way, you'd want to look at the project and say, right, who's the project manager? Who's going to deal with finance? Who's going to deal with this? Who's going to deal with this? And then one of the most important parts is actually the communications plan. Like, how are we actually going to communicate throughout the life of this project? Are we going to meet up once a month physically and then have calls every week and then speak daily on WhatsApp? How exactly are we going to ensure effective communication throughout? Then you basically move on to like ensuring project quality. So this is like, who's going to be checking our work? Who's going to ensure that the stuff that we're delivering is at the correct level? And then from there, I would actually do a project plan as well. And it will be an initial plan where you've got basic steps kind of written down, maybe week by week, a rough idea of the kind of work that you want to do. So it's just like an initial or provisional plan. And then you'll do things like project controls. Project controls are things like, where are we going to keep the actions? Where are we going to list the risks. How are we going to deal with decision making and things like that? And then there's also things like, exception process and change management and finding structure and all these things. And these sometimes, we just overcomplicate it. But at the heart of it, the whole point of the PID is to give you a clarity on what the project's aiming to achieve. Why it's actually important to achieve it, and who's going to be involved in it, and what are their responsibilities, and then finally how and when will it happen. Okay, so if you do this on your own before you start any project, it'll give you massive clarity, right? And then once you've got that clarity, then what happens is that you can actually share the PID with anyone that's considering coming on. So they get a complete idea of the whole project, of everything that's involved, and you can even start to pinpoint what areas they kind of fall into. So the reason I'm talking about the PID and all this, because I think that a lot of our problems, they actually stem from the way we start things. And I think it might be something similar here.